Nick Aldis just suspended Seth Rollins from WWE following brutal attack on Paul Heyman. When the architect of WWE decides to throw the entire blueprint out the window and go full demolition mode on Paul Heyman, you know something has gone catastrophically wrong. Seth Rollins, the man who has been the backbone of WWE programming for over a decade, just crossed a line so severe that Nick Aldis had no choice but to bring down the suspension hammer harder than a Brock Lesnar F5. And let me tell you, this is not just some slap on the wrist. This is a career-defining moment that could either make or break the Visionary's legacy in WWE. Real quick before we get into this absolute mayhem, hit that subscribe button and smash the notification bell, because WWE Extreme is your one-stop shop for all the drama, chaos, and jaw-dropping moments that WWE throws at us every single week. Trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming next in this storyline, because it is about to get wild. So let us set the stage here. Seth Rollins has been on an emotional roller coaster for months now. The man has been dealing with more psychological warfare than a chess match against Bobby Fischer. Between Roman Reigns constantly reminding him that he is the tribal chief, the bloodline treating him like yesterday's news, and the weight of carrying an entire brand on his shoulders, Seth has been teetering on the edge of sanity. But nobody, and I mean nobody, expected him to take out all that frustration on Paul Heyman of all people. Because attacking the Wiseman is not just attacking a manager. It is declaring war on the entire power structure of WWE. The attack itself was something straight out of a horror movie. Paul Heyman was in the ring doing what he does best, which is talking. The man could sell ice to a polar bear. And on this particular night, he was in peak form, hyping up Roman Reigns and throwing shade at anyone who dared challenge the tribal chief's authority. The crowd was eating it up, some booing, some cheering, but everyone was engaged. And then, like a bolt of lightning on a clear day, Seth Rollins' music hit. But this was not the usual Seth Rollins entrance where he is dancing and vibing with the crowd. No, this was different. This was a man on a mission, and that mission was destruction. Rollins stormed that ring like a man possessed by every demon he has been battling for the past year. The look in his eyes was not the calculated, strategic gaze of the architect. This was pure, unfiltered rage. Before security could even react, before anyone in the back could stop him, Seth was all over Paul Heyman like white on rice. We're talking about punches that echoed through the arena, stomps that made the ring shake, and a curb stomp so vicious that it sent shockwaves through social media within seconds. Heyman crumpled to the mat like a house of cards in a hurricane, and the entire arena went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Even the most hardcore Seth Rollins fans were sitting there with their jaws on the floor thinking, okay, maybe he just went too far this time. Now here is where the situation gets even more complicated. Nick Aldis, the SmackDown general manager and the man tasked with keeping order in what is essentially organized chaos, was put in an impossible position. On one hand, you have got Seth Rollins, a main event player, a former world champion, and someone who has given everything to WWE. On the other hand, you have got Paul Heyman, a legendary figure in wrestling, lying in the middle of the ring after being brutalized by an active superstar. What is a general manager supposed to do in that situation? Well, if you're Nick Aldis, you do not hesitate. You bring down the hammer, and you bring it down hard. The suspension announcement came faster than a Roman Reigns spear. Nick Aldis called Seth Rollins into his office the very next day, and the conversation was not a friendly one. Aldis made it crystal clear that attacking a non-competitor, especially someone as high-profile as Paul Heyman, was completely unacceptable. The suspension was indefinite, meaning Seth has no idea when or if he will be allowed back. And that uncertainty is what makes this so devastating. Because in WWE, momentum is everything. You lose momentum, and you might as well be starting from scratch. Seth Rollins just hit the pause button on his entire career, and nobody knows when that play button is getting pressed again. But let us dig deeper into the psychology behind this attack, because there is more going on here than meets the eye. Seth Rollins has always been portrayed as the intelligent one, the strategist, the guy who thinks 3 moves ahead. So why would someone like that suddenly throw all logic out the window and attack Paul Heyman in such a public and violent way? The answer is simple. desperation. Seth has been trying to prove that he is still relevant in a WWE landscape that has been dominated by Roman Reigns and the Bloodline for what feels like an eternity. Every time Seth gets close to reclaiming his spot at the top, Roman finds a way to knock him back down. And Paul Heyman, being the master manipulator that he is, has been the voice in Roman's ear orchestrating all of it. So in Seth's mind, taking out Paul Heyman was not just an act of violence. It was a strategic strike at the heart of the Bloodline's power structure. If you remove the wise men, maybe the tribal chief becomes vulnerable. Maybe Roman finally has to fight his own battles without someone whispering in his ear. It is twisted logic, sure, but it is the kind of logic that makes sense when you've been pushed to your absolute limit. Seth Rollins did not just snap. He calculated his snap, and that makes him even more dangerous. Now let us talk about the aftermath, because this is where things get really interesting. Roman Reigns has been eerily quiet since the attack. You would think that after someone brutalized his special counsel, the tribal chief would come out swinging, demanding justice and retribution. But instead, Roman has been playing it cool, almost too cool. He has not cut a promo, he has not confronted Seth, and he has not even publicly acknowledged what happened. And that silence is more terrifying than any threat he could make. Because when Roman Reigns is quiet, you know he's planning something big. He is letting Nick Aldis do the dirty work of suspending Seth while he sits back and plots his revenge. That is the mark of a true chess player. And what about Paul Heyman? The man took one of the most brutal beatdowns we have seen from a non-wrestler in WWE history. And yet somehow, you get the feeling that he is not upset. In fact, you could argue that this attack played right into his hands. Heyman has always been about creating moments, about building storylines that people will remember for years. And Seth Rollins attacking him just gave him the most memorable moment of the year. Now Heyman gets to play the victim, garner sympathy, and manipulate the situation to further strengthen Roman Reigns' position as the untouchable tribal chief. The man is a genius, even when he is get. This whole situation is a powder keg waiting to explode, and I am here for every single second of it. Seth Rollins suspended, Paul Heyman battered and bruised, Nick Aldis standing tall as the general manager who does not play games, and Roman Reigns lurking in the shadows waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This is WWE at its absolute best, and I cannot wait to see how it all unfolds. Thanks for watching WWE Extreme, and I will catch you in the next one.